This week on the Erotic Awakening Podcast, episode 736, Blindfolds, Bondage Fairies, and a Zing in Transylvania. Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, it's recommended you stop listening right now. First, as usual, I'd like to thank the amazing patrons of Erotic Awakening. You have kept and continue to keep this show and educational work alive and thriving. So a special welcome to our newest supporters, Lisa, Steve, Catherine, Amanda, David, and Jennifer. If you'd like to be a part of the team that supports this continuing work, head over to patreon.com/erotic awakening and sign up today. Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn, and I'm here this week to continue the conversations on power exchange, polyamory, sacred sexuality, and everything in between. Today, we're going to talk about blindfolds. Now, you would think after 16 and a half years of recording this podcast that we've talked about blindfolds before, and it could be. I didn't look to see if that was the case. But even if it was, this is now a new season for Erotic Awakening. So even if it's been talked about before, it's going to be a little bit different this time around. So I've been redoing my naughty bucket list, like I told you guys previously. Blindfolds are definitely on it. Like I said, I was just reviewing it and I'm like, oh, blindfolds are here. Why blindfolds? I mean, I've been doing kink for more than 25 years. Why is there still a giggle with blindfolds? Why do I still like blindfolds? And the reason I ask that is because many people start out with blindfolds. That's one of the first toys or tools that's added to our toy bag. Now, when I talk about people's first foray into kink, a lot of times that's spanking because we're bare ass naked when we're having sex. Asses are right there. Hands are right there. So spanking will take place. But as for an actual toy or an accessory that we put in our toy bag, blindfolds are usually first. And a lot of times it's not even like a real blindfold, right? It's not a sleeping mask. It's not something that we can get from Spencer's in the little kinky corner, right? Sometimes it is, but a lot of times, some of the first stuff that we use to cover someone's eyes is a handkerchief, a towel, a t-shirt, something like that, something that's handy, a necktie, right? So one of the first things, well, the first blindfold I ever remember being put on me was when I was just finding the kink world. And the person that I was playing with, um, it was a black t-shirt. They wanted to cover my face because we were switching our friendship to something else that we didn't even know what it was. And I think it was easier for both of us to have not just my eyes covered, but my face covered. So he took off his t-shirt, which happened to be black, and covered my eyes and my face with it. And that way, we didn't have to look at each other's face. Kind of weird, but I bet a lot of you can understand. You know, you're switching from one sort of relationship to another, and you've known each other for a long time. So if you look and see the face, it can kind of like zap your brain enough to throw you out of what you're doing. That is one reason for a blindfold. Now, another reason is because it is one of our primary processing modes. So let's see. Taylor Elwood is who I usually attribute this information to, but I guarantee you he researched it and got it from somewhere else. Taylor Elwood wrote the book Kink Magic. I've actually got a story in that book. That book is so old. But anyway, the research that he did said that 80% of the population, sight is their primary processing mode. So if you can take someone's sight away with a blindfold, that's their primary processing mode. So think of what that does to them, right? I know for me, when the blindfold is put on, especially in that first instance, it was an instant moment of vulnerability. I use my vision. Me personally, I constantly scan. I scan all the time. It is about keeping myself safe. So when I'm driving, I'm scanning. When I'm just sitting in my car, I noticed this yesterday. When I'm sitting in my car with the engine off and I'm talking on Marco Polo to different friends, I'm scanning. If I look at that little video, my eyes are constantly going back and forth. I'm constantly paying attention to what's going on around me. Well, when you cover my sight, I have to go within. There's nothing to look at. I have to go within and be very present within my body and pull up the other senses to figure out what's going on. So my hearing will heighten, right? Now it's not just visual because visual's gone, but now I pay attention to what I can hear. Now, to go a little further, if you use earplugs on the person so that they can't hear, then they have to go to other senses, right? My next one is energy. Actually, energy is going all the time, but I don't realize it so much because I've got my sight and my hearing. So with the blindfold, sight gone, now I have to pay attention to sounds, smells, touch, which in BDSM, that can kind of be the goal, is the touch, the energetic feeling, right? So you get all of these other processing modes, and it makes you very mindful. If I don't have a blindfold on, many people that see me play or play with me notice I keep my eyes closed. Recently, in the past, maybe it was a month or so ago. Let's see, I've been in Chicago for a month. So a month and a half ago, someone was doing something to me and they had to tap my chest and tell me to open my eyes. I wasn't making that connection with them, and they are very much about the connection and they need to see the person's eyes. I opened up my eyes because I had closed them so that I could feel what was going on. So opened my eyes, made contact, and that really worked for them. But I love having my eyes closed so that I can go within and just be present and not have distractions, right? So the t-shirt over my face in the first scene I ever did, a lot of that was to block out distractions. Distractions of seeing each other's face, distraction of seeing facial reactions. And that way you can concentrate on body reactions and not read into what a face is doing with expressions. Distractions of light, people moving, anything like that. I think there was a TV on in the room, so it cuts down on the distraction of the TV. So so many reasons for a blindfold, so many reasons I like them, that's for sure. Like I said, you can use handkerchiefs, towels, t-shirts. I've had neckties. Meow. Neckties tied around my head. And then they're like, "Can you see anything?" I'm like, "No, my eyes are closed." Because even if I have a blindfold on, I close my eyes as well. I don't want to see anything. I'm not a brat, even though it's not just brats that would try to see around the blindfold, but I truly don't want to see. I want to be in that vulnerable space. I want to be in that space of trust. I want to pay attention to the breath and the sounds and see if I can feel where their movement is. I love that sort of play. So, what kind of play can you do with blindfolds, right? There's all kinds of things that you can do. And if you ever look at, like, I don't know, is Vogue magazine still a thing? I'm not sure. But if you look at stuff like that, a lot of times they'll give you the top 10 things you can do to excite your man or whatever. And blindfolds is usually one of those things in that list. You can do things like teasing. You can tease your lover if they're wearing a blindfold, right? They don't know what's coming, and not everybody knows how to become present. So they're just, well, some of them can be a little nervous, some of them can be a little scared. That's okay. But then tease them so that they don't know what's coming, surprise them. If they're into tickling, you can do light tickles across the body, n- nips and licks and bites and breath. You can breathe on a body. And if they can't see that that's coming, it's much more intense because if they can see it coming, then their head kind of goes, wow, what the hell's he getting ready to do or she do? And and then it just gets confusing. But if you can block their sight and it comes in, it's very erotic and surprising and can be very sexy. And sometimes it's fun to see a blindfolded person squirm because they don't know what's coming or they enjoy what happens. How about if both of you wear a blindfold and explore each other's bodies? I mean, that's kind of cool to hear how the body reacts and to feel how the body reacts instead of going by sight. All of that is fun to do. And, okay, so you guys know I teach a naughty talk class, right? And I need to add this to the notes because one of the things that you can do to make naughty talk easier is to have blindfolds on, both of you. However you want to work that in. But if you can't see their facial reaction as you're leaning in and whispering into their ear what you would like to do to them, or what you are doing to them, or what you have done to them, all of those are tricks for learning how to do naughty talk. But you can't see their facial expression, it's so much easier. That's kinda that's kinda hot. Some of us have a fetish for that sense of surrender. Blindfolds can absolutely do that. You're giving a lot of power away. And some people could say I've worded that wrong, but that's how it works for me. That whole sense of surrender, trusting someone enough to allow them to touch where we've negotiated they can touch, wondering what part of the body is going to interest them next. That's all just really cool. What else can you use a blindfold for? How about role play? Absolutely. You can do it with role play because it's easier to suspend disbelief in what's happening. And the reason I say this, so this has happened to me a couple of times. And as most of you guys know, I like tentacles. And there was podcast listeners that also became friends of ours, and they wanted to do a tentacle sex scene with me. Do you know how hard that is? That's super hard because you have to suspend disbelief. It was much easier because they blindfolded me. So I had to dress as a wench. They pulled me to the cross and asked me where the key was, demanded the key. Well, of course, I don't know where the key is. That it was never told to me. There is no key. It's part of the role playing. But they blindfolded me when they took me to the cross, which means I can sink into my head and pretend that I'm a wench getting flogged someone asking for the key. Instead of having my eyes open, knowing that I'm in a basement on a cross with all of us dressed with Goodwill clothes as costumes and the sunlight coming in through the basement window. I mean, with a blindfold, you take all of that away, at least for the person that's blindfolded. And then when I couldn't give them the location of the key, they dragged me off to another room that they had set up. Well, I'm blindfolded. I can't see the room. I can hear the ocean. I can smell salt. I'm laid down on what feels like a rock, and then I'm threatened with the kraken, and then it feels like tentacles are wrapping around me. And then I feel a tentacle between my legs. I can feel the suction cups. I can feel all these things. So it's much easier to suspend disbelief. So all that stuff was able to happen. Later, when we talked about the scene, after the scene was over, and we're upstairs, we're coming down from the scene and we're talking about it. What I found out was that the ocean was a CD, of course. The salt was, they had some sort of salt spray or something like that. The tentacles were garden hoses that had been filled with sand and then lubed up. The tentacle between my legs was my tentacle dildo, George, who got stolen a long time ago. Anyway, so George was the tentacle that was coming up between my legs. The suction cups were little suction thingies that were on my thighs. But the way they were able to do that, because I had a blindfold on, was I would absolutely do that again. If they are listening, I would absolutely do that again. I mean, there was the breeze from a fan. There was just, I could stay in the story in my head and suspend that disbelief. And it was just amazing. I may have to add, adding more notes. I may have to add blindfolds to my options at my vending table because it's such a beginner thing that advanced players use as well. Blindfolds for vending. Absolutely. Speaking of which, with my vending table, I have events coming up. Oddly enough, I don't have much that I'm vending or presenting in October, but come November, it's going to be crazy and I'm going to love it. In November, I will be at Satiricon Vendor Fair in Madison. I'll be at Milwaukee's Naughty Munch in November, presenting and vending. I'll be vending at MSDB's 24th annual Bazaar, also called BizBaz, in Minneapolis in November, vending, of course. And then Naughty Revival in Minneapolis at the beginning of December. So there I'll be presenting 4 classes, and there's going to be a lot of great people there. I'm looking forward to that event. I'm looking forward to everything that's coming up. Life is so exciting right now. I got so many options and so many things I want to do. I've actually got a spreadsheet of 150 events over the next year that I need to scroll through and pick out what I want to do. Keep up with all the places I'm presenting or vending, my online classes, intensives, book news, other news of other projects I have coming up, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you get an EA shout out, like Mrs. Velvet from Australia. Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe today. So if you're on our Discord channel, you will have seen that I'm super excited about my comics called Bondage Fairies. I found them. I've been minimizing so much over the last 4 years, so much so that the few things that I have left are just very important to me. And oddly enough, my Bondage Fairy comics are in that list. I have 3 comics that well, no, I have about 5. And are they comics or are they, I think they're called manga? Erotica. So I think it's how they're listed if you look at like Wikipedia or something. Maybe I should ask Johnny Jackhammer. He knows, and I'll be seeing him soon. Anyway, Bondage Fairies. One of my first erotic, was it really my first? Hmm. I've got a couple of magazines that I got from an adult bookstore, and then I found these Bondage Fairies. I had a friend give me one, and then I found another one in a comic book store in their little X-rated corner. And these are, I don't know, but I'm so excited about them. I really love them. And I posted pictures of them on the Discord channel, which is why I brought that up. So if you're over there, you know that I've been talking about them. But it's fairies, and they're little nymphs that take care of the forest. So, but they're little naughty fairies, and then there's spiders and grasshoppers and just insects and spider webs. And I mean, you can imagine what happens with the spider webs and stuff. But yeah, the bondage that's involved in there is pretty hot. So Bondage Fairies. If anybody comes across any, I should probably go on eBay. I've only got two volumes. I've only got two books. I would not mind getting the collection, but they're out of print, so they're probably a little expensive to find. Anyway, if anybody comes across any and wants to send me a link, that would be amazing. If you want to send me a link, you can do it a couple of different ways. I'm Dawn_Awakening or Erotic Awakening, all one word, on Fetlife, Erotic Awakening on Instagram, EA Podcast Dawn on TikTok. Totally different, I know. Or just email me at dawn@eroticawakening.com. So what is this thing about zinging in Transylvania? I've been working on a lot of projects. I have been sitting at my computer hours and hours and hours a day, working on projects, catching up on stuff, getting organized, event spreadsheets, all the things. When I do that, my brain either needs to have music playing or I need to be watching episodes of TV shows that I've already seen or watching some movies. And what I have found is that when I watch cartoons, movies for kids or family movies or anything like that, I can concentrate better. And that's because they're kind of funny, but I'm not really involved in them. I don't have to pay attention to the story to get the joy out of it. Anyway, I was working on a project and I was listening to Transylvania 3, I think it was, and I just picked it at random. And part of the show caught my attention. And one of the monsters on the show was getting ready to get married. And the bride didn't know if she was making the right decision. The groom is up there in front of the officiant sweating because the bride's running late. And the bride's just like, I just don't know if I'm making the right decision. And what she was told was, and this was Dracula's daughter, she's telling the bride to be that if you feel the zing, go for it. The zing only happens once in your life. And a zing is when a monster finds their soulmate. I rewound that and listened to it again. The monster finds their soulmate, and that zing only happens once in a lifetime, which means you only, I had to turn it off. I'm like, and then I went to Discord and I'm like, you won't believe what I just heard on this children's movie, right? We're teaching our kids that there's only one person for them and that zing only happens once in life. And I was a little perturbed. Do people still use that word, perturbed? But I was. I'm like, no wonder so many people think they have to be monogamous. No wonder people are searching for that one true person that will be their other half. And if they mess up with that, they're a failure. And I mean, this is what it seems like. And I just don't believe that. I mean, I do believe in soulmates, but maybe I thought so. And man, I just don't know. So on Discord, I was told. It's no wonder. People get confused about loving more than one person in their life, let alone at the same time. Okay? Because we hear stuff like that. So I went on to Discord and I posted this frustration and what I was told by people that have seen this movie. Because remember, I turned it off. I'm like, oh, I'm not listening to this if this is what they're teaching. And I was told that Dracula thinks he will never zing again because he already zinged with his wife who passed. So he's surprised and upset when he zings for someone else later. And what I imagine is if he zings for someone else later, he's going to question, well, was the zing I had for my late wife really real? I mean, imagine all the questions that can go through your head when you're told there's only one person for you. There's only one person for you in the whole fucking universe. And the odds of finding that person are like nil to none. But then you find a person, and man, it's no wonder we all have so many questions. Anyway, I'm going to go back and finish watching the movie now because I've told that it has more to teach than just what I heard. Oh my gosh, if you have any thoughts about this, please share them with me. Be a part of the Erotic Awakening podcast community. You can become a patron of the show and get early access to the ad-free version of the podcast, a free copy of the audiobook Polyamory Toolkit, free ebooks, discounts on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord access, and more. Find all the goodies at patreon.com/erotic awakening today. And then help others find us. Take a moment to support the podcast and give high ratings wherever you listen to the podcast. And most importantly, tell your friends about the show. Join the conversation with other listeners. You don't have to be a patron for this. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our interactive Discord channel. Until next time, may your journey be filled with passion, joy, and a bit of naughtiness. Bye, everyone.